I'm Dennis Anderson along with Julie Zenner, and here's what's coming up on Almanac North.
Tall Ships Duluth 2016 may go down as one of the biggest events in the history of the city, with as many as 300,000 people predicted to visit this weekend.
The Minnesota Slip in the heart of Duluth's waterfront tourist district is on tap to get some much-needed attention.
And Douglas County will soon have a new district attorney, and we'll meet him tonight.
All right, these stories and the business news coming up right now on Almanac North. Hello and welcome to Almanac North. Thank you very much for watching. And Julie, the weekend many people have been waiting for is here. The tall ships are in town.
The tall ships are in town?
They are in town.
I thought people were excited about a yellow duck.
Oh, is it busy down there, huh?
Very busy.
All right, well, we've got a lot more on the tall ships in our very first report.
All right, yes we do. Thanks, Denny. Draw Events, the Tall Ships promoter, predicts as many as 300,000 people will flock to Duluth to see the ships over the 4-day event. Spending on hotels, attractions, and food is expected to pump about $15 million into the region's economy. The event kicked off Thursday with the Parade of Sails, and we sent out a bevy of cameras to bring you this unique perspective on the big day.
Bob Gustafson in the heart of Canal Park, the visitor tourist information location right here for Tall Ships Duluth 2016. It will be the biggest single event ever in Duluth, yes, and it is just a phenomenal atmosphere, not only with the tall ships, but all of the other aspects of the weekend.
It's a huge deal. Yeah, this is really, it's exciting to watch this event happen from this new vantage I have, because you really do see the thousands of people who touch this event. I'm on the bridge today. I'm actually not totally comfortable because we're very high up, but it's just beautiful. I mean, what an unusual opportunity.
What a gorgeous atmosphere, great day along Lake Superior in the Duluth Harbor, and a lot of hard work went into today's events and this weekend's events, but it's just so fantastic to finally have this day here.
I think it's really great for the kids here at down Canal Park to see a part of history that they would probably never see again. It's one thing to read about them in books and see the pictures. It's another thing to see them up close and real.
It looks like they're gonna hit the bridge, but they really don't.
One of the particular vessels is the Spanish galleon, El Galleon Andaluca. Wonderful, wonderful vessel, came in late on Wednesday evening, and that's going to be a highlight. Also, of course, the world's largest rubber duck, 61 feet tall. People of all ages are excited to see the largest rubber duck in the world, and that has really drawn a lot of attention and is bringing people here solely for that purpose.
Well, the Niagara is a particular favorite of mine, going back from the War of 1812. As a war historian myself, it's great to see those things.
To look out my window this morning at 10 a.m., there's already this huge traffic jam. Sometimes that would get frustrating, but you know what? As mayor, you look at it going, yes, great. People are showing up.
Patience is the key. Put on that Minnesota nice face, and the Canal Park area can hold a lot of people, but it is a congested area. There's no doubt about that with the amount of people that will be down here. And fortunately, there are so many different things to do besides boarding the ships and touring those. It's going to be a busy weekend, but a fun weekend, and it's already off to a great start.
I can't even count this high. When I look out and I see all these ships, I mean, wow, unbelievable.
Really was quite a scene on Thursday, and thousands of visitors will be walking the waterfront in Duluth this weekend, getting up close to the tall ships. They'll also find the William A. Irvin ore boat moored in the Minnesota Slip, representing the port's modern-day maritime history. But above and below the waterline of the Minnesota Slip, problems are lurking. The bottom of the slip contains polluted sediments, and the slip walls are failing and in need of some repairs. Well, joining us to talk about these issues is Heidi Bauman, Minnesota Slip Project Manager for the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, and David Montgomery is the Duluth City Administrator. And thanks to both of you for being here. Sounds like your office is right in the thick of all of the activity down there.
Oh yeah, we're right on the canal, so we can see the boats and we could see Minnesota Slip right out our windows. So.
Well, let's talk about the pollution. What kind of pollution are we talking about in the Minnesota Slip, and how did it get there?
We're dealing with legacy contaminants. These are contaminants that happened 100 years ago, before we had regulations on what we put in the water, what we put in the ground. So it's from industrial activities, shipping activities. You know, we have 100+ years of all sorts of different businesses coming and going from that area.
Are the sediments pretty much laying on the bottom, or do they get mixed up into the water too, and are they dangerous?
They're dangerous to the benthic community, the critters that are living in the sediments and right above it. They're not a human health threat because we don't have contact with them. They're fairly thick, and it's throughout the whole slip.
Several feet thick?
On average, 7 feet thick. There are some areas that are up to 12 feet thick.
Really?
And the contaminants are things like PCBs, mercury, chromium, cadmium, lead, nickel, zinc. There's a lot of those leftovers from different industries that have been in there.
And Dave, of course, the city watches this area pretty closely. How closely are you working with the Pollution Control Agency on the cleanup of the sediment?
We work really closely with MPCA, not only here, but throughout the St. Louis River Estuary. We've been a partner with them, and they've been a terrific partner in the efforts we've been doing to clean up the whole river estuary. Especially in the Minnesota Slip, we are very interested in that area. It's right in the heart of Canal Park, and we think there's real opportunities to do some things there, but the cleanup is an important part of that.
So there are several proposals that are in the works, what, 4 of them maybe? Maybe the two of you can kind of explain what they might be.
Well, we've just completed an update of our feasibility study of how to address the contaminated sediments. And we've come up with 4 alternatives that we're presenting to the public, and we're asking for comment. We have a public meeting coming up next Wednesday from 5 to 8 p.m. in the Pollution Control Agency offices in Duluth. And we're going to look at 4 alternatives that we've come up with. We always look at a no action alternative, which is what's on the screen right now. Basically, we wouldn't do anything except continue to monitor the sediments to see if they move around, if sediments get added to the thickness of the contaminants and things like that. The next alternative we would look at is a partial dredging of the contaminated sediments. Basically, we would take out the shallow areas and we would dewater that and take it away. So it would be taken care of off-site. And then we would put a 3-foot cap on top of that to kind of restrict the contaminated sediment below a clean cap. So the benthic community has a fresh, clean environment to live in. And it keeps those contaminants locked down below where we can't get at them.
Sure.
And one of the things that the city has involved in this is we have 2 major stormwater discharge pipes coming in at the head of the slip. And so any of the work has to involve and will involve the city making sure that those 2 go hand in hand, and that what we're discharging from downtown into the slip doesn't adversely affect the work that, by redoing the bed and redoing the cap. So that's another technical issue that we have to deal with in the slip, is there are these big discharge.
Yeah.
There were a couple of other options that you're looking at?
Right. The third one is a total dredge, taking out all the contaminated sediments, moving them off site, and then putting a 1-foot cover over it just in case there is some residual contamination. Some of the issues with doing that is it could greatly affect the dock wall issue. And so we'll have to look closely to whether that is really a viable alternative for considering, what we've got going around the dock walls.
Let's talk about that, because there have been some issues with the dock walls failing around the Minnesota Slip and beyond, back behind the deck and over to Great Lakes Aquarium, I understand. What is the condition right now of the slip and the rest of that dock wall?
Well, the dock wall consists of several different parts, and they're in different states of repair.
Some of it's very old, isn't it?
Some of it's really old. The stuff right around where the Vista Fleet docks, right on the corner behind the deck where it comes from the deck and turns into the slip, and then on down the slip towards the back of the Irvin, that stuff is original. That's original wood crib dock wall from the 1880s, 1890s. It's really old. It's an incredible construction. But it's old and it's failing, and what's happening is the wave action is getting in between gaps in the wall and it's washing away the material behind it, and that's where you've been hearing about the sinkholes. That's getting washed away, and then there's sinkholes showing up on the grass and near the street, outside the slip. And those are a serious concern for us. The rest of the dock walls, as you go around behind the deck and towards Bayfront Park, are not as in such poor condition. They're fairly stable, but they do need to be replaced, as part of this process.
Is there a safety concern there too? Are you holding your breath a little bit as 300,000 people are walking along those dock walls this week, that you have some sinkhole issues going on?
We did some work this spring where we filled in a number of the areas where the sinkholes were with some heavy material, not just sand, but riprap and gravel and things of that. We're confident that that'll hold up. We've also fenced off areas that we're concerned about, so we keep the public off of those areas. And so we feel that it's a safe environment for the visitors down there, but we do have areas fenced off, and we have areas where they can't go. And longer term, we need to address it and repair these walls.
And Heidi, is there a fourth proposal you're looking at?
There is, and it's what we're calling leveling the slip. Basically taking the contaminated sediments where it's real shallow and putting it into the deeper holes, and then putting a 3-foot cap on top of that. And we like that idea because it helps with the dock wall issue, might lessen their cost for repairing those. They won't have to go as deep. It maintains the current use. We're not taking contaminated sediment off-site, which, then you're dealing with trucking and you're moving the issue somewhere else. So those are the 4 that we're looking at, and we're taking comments.
And again, there's a public meeting next week?
Public meeting Wednesday the 24th from 5 to 8 p.m. at the Pollution Control Agency offices in the Palucci Building, 4th floor, Suite 400. Please come and make comment, and if you want to do it online, you can email me. There's more information online at www.pca.state.mn, and just Google or search on Minnesota Slip and you'll find lots of good information there.
Now, I know that the former mayor, Don Ness, had talked at one point about maybe filling in the Minnesota Slip. Is that still something that's on the table for the city and part of the discussion as you look at what those options are?
Well, currently, this administration is not actively pursuing that. We're focused on the Blue Bridge right now.
Will that get attention?
The Blue Bridge will get attention. We're going through the engineering on it right now. We've identified a solution for it. And the Blue Bridge is vital, not just as a tourist attraction, but it's a key economic connection for the deck.
It's a people mover.
It's a people mover.
For those viewers who don't live in the town here in Duluth, that's a pedestrian bridge across the slip.
It is the way you get from the deck, and if you're at a convention or conference at the deck, how you get back to your hotel or over to activities in Canal Park. It's also, when you look at this event going on, the tall ships, where we have tens and tens of thousands of people in and around Canal Park. It is the primary exit route in case of emergency, say severe weather or something, to get out of that area is across the Blue Bridge. So it's a public safety issue, it's an economic issue, and it's a tourist issue. So it's not just a nuisance issue, it's a critical issue.
It really
for the
hasn't
whole
worked
area
since
down
day
there.
one, has it?
It has not worked from day one. In fact, I believe you can go back and look in the newspaper archives on about day 3, it failed.
25 years.
Well, we only have about 30 seconds, but did want to ask you real quickly, just from the city's perspective, thoughts on no special session, because you're really depending on some bonding money for some major projects in town.
Not surprising, deeply disappointing, and incredibly frustrating. There are so many really valuable projects for Duluth and the entire region that were in that bonding bill, and statewide, that are core infrastructure issues that are now going to have to wait, and we don't know if that's wait in 2017 or wait in 2018. But very
Including
disappointing.
Superior Street.
Superior Street's going to get delayed because the steam plant was part of that, and those two have to go together. And so we have to wait another year before we can begin that process.
All right, well, thank you very much for coming in on this busy weekend and sharing some information with us.
Heidi,
Thank you.
Dave, thank you.
Thanks.
Now, let's dig into our news file archive for a look at what was making news 25 years ago this week.
A truck carrying 14,000 pounds of fish overturned on this corner yesterday afternoon, spilling fish and diesel fuel all over the road and knocking down a bus stop bench and streetlight pole. No one was injured in the accident, but residents who live on the corner of Piedmont and West 9th Street have had enough.
This isn't the first time an accident happened on this corner. A gas station used to stand right here until a truck slammed into it back in 1987.
Residents want something done about the steep, twisting, dangerous roads in the area.
I think they should reroute the semis, or they should put up bigger guardrails the whole way down, because kids play on this corner and there's been too many accidents.
Residents hope city officials will take notice of their suggestions, if not for the safety of motorists, for the safety of area children. In Duluth, Laura Cowan, KDLH News.
Douglas County will have a new district attorney for the first time in 26 years after incumbent Dan Blank was defeated in the primary election last week. 32-year-old Mark Fruehaf, a former prosecutor in the district attorney's office in Superior, defeated Blank with nearly 60% of the vote. Both candidates ran as Democrats, and with no Republican on the ballot, Fruehaf will advance to the November general election unopposed. Mark Fruehaf joins us now to talk about the election and his plans when he takes office. Mark, thank you very much for being here. What in the world spurred you on to run for the district attorney seat?
It is something I had thought about doing for a couple of years. I went to law school to be a prosecutor. I'm from Superior, born and raised, so I thought it would be a good way to give back to the community, and I figured at this point in my life, I'm 32, if I was ever going to do it, now was going to be the time.
And you did work in the prosecutor's office for a while.
I did. First job practicing out of law school.
Mm-hmm.
Were you pretty confident going in right off the get-go?
I felt good going into the last day. I cannot say that I ever felt confident before then or even the night of. With a local election, you just don't know. There's no polling, and you're just never, you don't have that certainty. So.
Mm-hmm. Do you see some parallels between your story and Dan Blank's story 25 years ago?
Yeah, people have brought that up, that Mr. Peterson, who was the incumbent then, was a longtime incumbent, and Mr. Blank was a young new attorney who had defeated him, and now 25 years later there are some similarities.
You got strong support from law enforcement. How did that come about?
I think building the relationships that I had with them as a prosecutor helped along the way. I worked as a defense attorney for the last 3.5 years, so I don't know if that helped the relationship necessarily.
But they knew you.
They did. They knew what to expect from me. I think there was a good level of respect going both ways in that regard. We had a candidate forum early June, both candidates, and they asked a lot of questions of us, and I think they liked what I had to say.
So you worked for a while in the DA's office. Were there things that you saw there at the time that you thought, boy, these really need to be changed, and I think that I'm the guy to do it?
Not when I was there. I can't claim to say on day one or even my first 2 years there that I had all these grand ideas for how to run things differently.
But it gives you perspective on some things within the office that now you see in hindsight could be changed?
Absolutely.
And what are those?
I think when you have an office that's that size, it's 3.5 prosecutors. I think last year, that office charged out more than 1,300 criminal cases. And that does not count juvenile cases, doesn't count previous years' worth of cases. With prosecutors, just 3.5 prosecutors in the office, you're talking about a prosecutor laying hands on hundreds of files in a year. I think that having policies in place that promote efficiency and help get those cases through the system a little more quickly, it's going to free up your time as a prosecutor to focus on the big cases that really need the attention.
So can you give some examples of how you could maybe simplify that process or move cases through a little bit easier?
Sure. So one of the things that I campaigned on, what I really want to do is establish some sort of internal written guidelines for a lot of the same routine kinds of cases that come through the office: drunk drivings, disorderly conduct, theft, that kind of thing. You shouldn't have to reinvent the wheel every time you pick up a file that you're going to see a lot of in a given year. If you have well-defined policies, if you and the assistants have well-defined policies you can follow, you know what you're going to do with that file much more quickly. You can get an offer to the defense in the plea bargaining process. You can get them their police reports and discovery, and try to move that case through the system.
You said you wanted to reform the plea bargaining system. How would you do that?
As a prosecutor, when you plea bargain, what you're doing is you are basically trading the chance to go to trial and get maximum sentence, maximum conviction for efficiency. I mean, you have to have plea bargaining with that number of cases. So as a prosecutor, your first offer that you make should be your best offer. The plea offer should not improve over time to the advantage of the defense. So what I really want to do is establish a deadline basically early in the process with those cases to take a settlement. I'll make a proposal, the defense will reach out to me, we'll have a discussion, and eventually there's going to come a point in time where I say, here's my best offer, take it or leave it. If they leave it, then we're going to set it for trial, and the offer's not going to improve.
How do you decide what charges to file as a district attorney, or what cases to take?
Sure. Law enforcement, every case that we would prosecute comes from law enforcement, whether it's the sheriff, the state patrol, or the police. They will send over reports with a suggested list of charges. That's a good starting point. Sometimes those are the charges I would issue. Other times you look at it and you might decide there's lesser charges to be issued, there's more serious charges to be issued. It's a judgment call basically every time you pick up a new case.
Are a lot of cases low-level prosecution cases?
Well, I don't want to say any case is necessarily low level because, if you're a victim on a misdemeanor case, it's still certainly a very important case to you. But there are a lot of cases that I would say are less serious than some of the major felony cases like sexual assault, murder, drug dealing that come through the system. So in that way, they are a little lower level perhaps.
Does that need reform too, or not necessarily?
The
lower level cases. Are there any changes there you see coming?
That's where I think having those policies in place that help you sort of move those cases through more quickly, that's where you're going to be able to do that. I think it's a lot harder to have, you're not looking to rush a serious felony case through the system. Those are the cases that really need the time and attention. But if you can focus your efforts on those cases while moving lower cases through, I think you're doing a good service to the public.
So you grew up in Superior. Have you seen the community change in terms of the crime and safety issues that are faced there?
I think drugs are a lot worse than they've ever been.
Heroin, like in Duluth too?
Yeah, heroin, methamphetamine, cocaine. I mean, hard drugs that are a real serious problem.
And is that driving a lot of the cases that the DA sees?
Yeah, mental health and addiction are two of the biggest contributing factors to crime in the community. And certainly drug abuse in the community is one thing that is really pushing a lot of crime. People have to steal to support their habit, to get their next fix. Drugs contribute to the mindset people have when they commit a lot of these crimes. So yes, it's a big problem.
All right, Mark Fruehaf. Well, I guess we can call you District Attorney-elect. Right now, you don't have any opposition going into the general election.
I like the sound of that.
You do, I'm sure you do. Mark, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Time now for the week's business headlines from our friends at Business North. A Wednesday decision by the Minnesota Supreme Court will send a high-profile business case back to tax court. At issue is the value of Blandin Paper Company forest land in Itasca, St. Louis, Aiken, and Koochiching counties. A tax court decision reduced the value, which drastically cut tax revenues for the counties. In an appeal to the Minnesota Supreme Court, the counties asked to raise the taxable land value. All aspects of the case will be reconsidered in tax court.
Businessman Rob Link, responsible for millions of dollars of regional real estate, has died. He died Saturday. A partner with Lee Anderson at A&L Properties, his company built 35 buildings in the Twin Ports, including the Technology Village and Lake Walk Center. Link was named Business Person of the Year by the UMD Leibovitz School in 1997. In 2013, Link and Anderson received Lifetime Achievement Honors from the Leibovitz School.
Duluth Mayor Emily Larson on Thursday expressed frustration that the Minnesota legislature will not meet in special session to approve a bonding bill. The inaction will delay a proposed steam heating system renovation, which would have converted the system to hot water. Much of the work was to be completed during the Superior Street reconstruction project next summer. Now the street project will have to be delayed. The legislative inaction is a disappointment to all those who work to promote the STEAM project and many others, Larson said. For more on these and other stories, visit businessnorth.com.
So if you have a comment on our show, call now. Dial 218-788-2849 to leave a message, or send us an email to almanacnorth@wdse.org. And visit the WDSE website for information about your favorite programs, upcoming station events, and the latest program listings. And Julie, I guess maybe you'll be out mingling with those, checking on the tall ships this weekend.
I do plan to go down there. I love to look at the ships, and of course the Bayfront Art Fair is going on too. I've got some friends who are out there selling their wares. So
a lot happening in this town, and the ships are beautiful. For Julie and the crew at Almanac North, I'm Dennis Anderson. Have a great weekend. Good night, everybody, and be kind.